Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TbT channel. Welcome to the final video from Pellet Week, where we're going to be talking about preparation, selection, cleaning, lubricating, sizing, grading, everything your pellets. Now, a couple of parish notices before we start. This may seem like an April's Fool, but this is real. This one is a real one. April's Fool was on Tuesday. That was, in case you didn't see it, that was my fake new caliber video, which 6,000 of you so far have watched, and not many have fallen for it, but a couple did get cross. So I'm sorry about that. I'm a bit of a knob and sometimes I do wind people up. I know that. I wind myself up. Secondly, you will notice I'm not wearing my sling. That is because I know I need both hands here, but this is going to stay as stationary as possible, but let me use my hands. Now, pellet week. So far, we've sorted out which is best, 177 or 22. That was on Monday. That is now definitively answered. If I see any questions on Tinterwebs now, social media, stuff like that, which should I get, 177 or 22? I expect to see a link to that video. That'd be great. Tuesday was a bit of a wind up. Wednesday we did which style of pellets, or the different styles of pellets, and which maybe would work best in most situations. And today we're going to look at pellet preparation. Now, this is something I get asked about a lot. People, as you know, because many of you do phone me, I'm always here on the end of the phone. I love to chat to you about anything shooting related. And people always say to me, Nick, what do you do to prepare your pellets? The actual real answer is I pick the twigs out, and that is it. They're usually in my coat pocket and they could be there for months. I pick the twigs out before I shoot them. That's it. I'm not a precision shooter. Okay, I shoot tin cans. I don't even do my armed rambling anymore. It's purely for leisure, purely for fun. I shoot at reactive targets, stationary targets, very occasionally paper, but only if there's something I need to test. All of what we're going to talk about today makes a difference of millimeters. I miss by inches. So I'm telling you what happens, but it isn't something I do. But for the Matt Gleaves is, Sir Matt Gleaves, MBE, nice one, Matt, Gary Chillingworth's, Jason Lockett's, you know, the proper serious targety shooty guys, they probably do this. And if I've got any of this wrong, I do hope they chime in and tell me, maybe not their secrets. I might not want to divulge their secrets, but any other things they would do differently to what I'm mentioning here. So let us begin. I have a range of pellets in front of me, and I have a range of tools to work with these pellets to show you different things to do. Now, if you are into very accurate shooting, or you just are into vermin control, but you want to be sure all your pellets are perfectly prepared, the first thing you really want to do when you get a tin of pellets is empty it out. I mean, this is Superdomes, and there's not many left in this one. And I'm not sure if you can see towards the top of the lid of that tin, or the top of the base of that tin, there's an awful lot of crap in there. And that is lead swarf. Little tiny bits of swarf. Now, that's going to stick to your pellets, okay? It's going to make tiny differences, but tiny differences matter. So if you want to get the most from your pellets, the first thing you want to do is empty a tin into a sieve and run it under a tap. Warm water, maybe a bit of washing up liquid. Like I say, this isn't the April's Fool's one. This is what people will do to get the most from their accuracy. And if you want the most from your accuracy, really take note and try it. Let me know, actually, let me know. A, if you already do this, and B, if you don't already do this but decide to give it a go, does it make a difference? So by washing them, you're going to get rid of all the crappy bits in the tin, which might otherwise stick to the pellet and affect its weight, affect its ballistics, things like that. Once you've patted dry each individual pellet, or put them somewhere warm and dry to dry overnight, you want to take out all the deformed pellets. Okay, so any with, you know, bent skirts like that one there. It's quite common with today's pellets. It's quite common to get ones that just aren't very round. I'm actually deforming those because we're going to come back to deformed pellets later. But I'm going to put those ones there, pick out any deformed pellets, and then put those to one side. And the next thing you want to do, and this actually, I did some testing a number of years ago. It's when we lived in Falmouth, so it would have been pre-2018. So it would have been 2016 to 2018, I believe. And it was when I was a member of the air rifle shooting club near Truro in the woods at Idlis Woods. I can't remember the name of it. Kev, what's the name of it? There's a few of you guys hopefully are watching this. You'll be able to tell me what the name of it was. But we had a bench rest shooting kind of area, covered shooting positions, and then targets out, so you could actually get a good base and find out where your accuracy was and how accurate you could make your rifle with different things. And one of the things I did was with pellets, because we did pellet products. We still do pellet products. And what I found the easiest improvement to accuracy, and more important, well, not more importantly, but certainly something you can really tell just from straight off, do this, you will see an immediate improvement result, is over the chrono. Okay, so what I've got here is a little Lyman scale. Now I wouldn't normally go out and buy a scale to weigh pellets because that's not my thing, but this is part of my reloading gear. And when I'm making up new batches, new rounds, I need different quantities of powder, and I have to be very, very precise with how much powder I put in there to get the best result from a rifle or a handgun. So I have some very accurate digital scales. Now, these are 14.5 grain Superdomes. And that one's 14.4. That one's 14.4. You see, now it's saying these are 14.5s. That one's 14.7. So I'll put him over there. That one's 14.6. You know, if you were smart, you'd have written down and have little boxes so you can grade these out. And that one's 14.6 again. So out of those 5 pellets, 2 of them are underweight, 3 of them are overweight. But by quite a lot, 0.3 of a grain, if you're doing power checking, that can make a difference of, I don't know, maybe half a foot-pound, depending on the velocity of the pellet. So it's important to know the weight of your pellets. Also, if you were to grade out 10 pellets all the same weight, so not a scattered range of weights like these ones are, but all the same weight, if you were to shoot them over the chronograph, they'll be much closer together than having a 14.4 followed by a 14.7 followed by a 14.4 followed by a 14.6 by maybe a 14.5. You're going to get much tighter numbers over the chrono, and that can make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but it doesn't actually help your accuracy in every case, but it's a step in the right direction. So we've washed our pellets and we've taken out our deformed pellets, the ones with deformed skirts, and we've graded them into weights. So we'll have hopefully a big pile of them that are all the same weight, and they're our premium pellets. They're the ones we want to concentrate on because there are the most of them. The others we can use for practice because we all need to practice, but these are your special ones over here. Okay, so what do we do with them next? Now, there are 2 trains of thought here. One of them is that you get your special pellets and you put them into a plastic bag and you lubricate them. Okay, now we all like a good lube, and pellets do too. I've never done it in my life. Honestly, I just, even when I was weighing and sizing and grading, didn't bother lubricating them because in my mind, lead is a lubricant. That is why it was added into petrol to lubricate the engine, because lead is a lubricant, but some people will lubricate their pellets. And if you're going to lubricate your pellets, what should you use? My opinion, what I think you should do is use silicone spray or Teflon spray. Now, what you would do is put them into the bag, hold the bag, spray your silicone or Teflon in there and give it a good shake like that. Not too rough because you don't want to deform your pellets, but give them a good shake. The reason you use a Teflon or silicone spray is it's a dry lubricant. Okay, the last thing you want to do is put something wet on there that's going to attract dust and foreign objects and basically if you get a thing, doesn't matter what it is, a metal thing, and you dip it in oil, okay, get it nice and oily, and then you roll it in sand, when you pick it up, it's going to be covered in sand. If you get the same thing, spray it with a non-tacky dry silicone or Teflon spray lubricant, you can roll it in sand, pick it up, there won't be any sand on it. I learned that when I worked for Worth, the lubricants people, automotive lubricants people. You want lubricants in certain situations that aren't going to attract and keep dust. You want to keep things clean and lubricated. So if you're going to lubricate your pellets, I suggest silicone or Teflon. And now we come on to pellet sizing, which is a thorny subject. Now, I will say straight away, I have a vested interest in talking about pellet sizers because we make and we sell pellet sizers. I don't use a pellet sizer. My wife uses a pellet sizer. In fact, the pellet sizing side of the business now is my wife's business. This is her thing. They make a difference in millimeters. I miss by inches. Time was when we would sell over 100 pellet sizers per month. And I'll tell you the story of the pellet sizers and TbT. It's similar to the story of the short stroke extensions, the TX200 short stroke extensions and TbT. Neil Price, it was his birthday earlier this week. Happy birthday, Neil. Hope you're okay. Neil Price was UK Neil on the forums, and he was the technical guy in, I believe it was Air Gunner magazine. He used to tune rifles, do special things. He developed the short stroke extension for the TX200 Mark III to make it shoot like a Mark II. This was back in the late 90s. You know, the guy's a clever guy. And he used to make pellet sizers. And I found this out when I got my first 25 cal air rifle, which was back in the early 2000s when we lived in Cornwall, and it was a 25 caliber BSA Lightning, one of the first ones with the Venturi screw in the transfer port. But those guns, the early BSA 25s, were actually a 243 barrel, not a 25 barrel, which meant when you got your 25 cal pellet, it was a bugger to try and get it in there because the barrel itself was a 243, not a 25, 6.17 millimeter, not 6.35 millimeter. Quite a difference. So somebody put me in contact with Neil way back then. We're talking like 20 odd years ago, and he made me a pellet sizer. And this is a pellet sizer here. What you do basically is, the one I had back then was a 243 caliber. Okay, so you got your 25 caliber pellet, you dropped it in the top like that. There's a tapered tube inside. You get your plunger, you push it down like that, and it comes out the other end sized to the inside of the barrel, inside the barrel of the pellet sizer, which in this case, because it's not a 25 cal, this is a 5.52 mil. And that was a godsend because it meant I could size my pellets for the 25 cal to 243, and then I could easily use them in my BSA 25 cal Lightning. When Neil retired, I've told this story before because it's how we got the TX extensions, but I went to his house and he showed me various things, and he showed us the pellets. I said, these sell well, make some of these. So we did, and we made them. First of all, we made them by hand for a while. Then they were made on CNC machine. But even a CNC machine couldn't make them accurately enough for the 100th of a millimeter difference that we have between sizes. We have 4.48 up to 4.53 in 177, and we have 5.48 up to 5.53 in 22, 100th of a millimeter difference between them. So we had them made by a specialist company who would make them, and then they were graded. They had a £40,000, it cost them £40,000 laser measure that zapped down inside these things and brought a 3D picture of it up on the computer, and it could grade them out to, in fact, it was much finer than 1/100th of a millimeter. So we would then say, well, that one's 4.485 to 4.494. We'll call all of those 4.9, things like that. So it was mind-bogglingly accurate. And what happened was we would send them out to people, and they would get them, and they would get, for example, a 5.52 pellet sizer, and they would put it in there, and they would push it through, and then they would get their 4.99 vernier from Lidl's, and they would go, that's supposed to be 4.52. This is 5.52. This is 5.53. I want my money back. Now, here's the thing. The £40,000 laser measuring equipment that the specialist company that made these for us used was more accurate than the 4.99 vernier from Lidl's. And I'll tell you another thing. This is the one I've just put through, a 5.52 sizer. Now, this is my 5.52 pellet sizer here. You would expect if I put this in there, it will drop straight through onto the table, but it doesn't. If I put that there, I still have to push it through. And again, if I put it in there, it doesn't drop through to the table. So I'll put this where you can see it. So make a clear run of it here. I have to push it through. So it's been through there twice now. So now you'd expect it to drop straight through onto the table, but no. You still have to push it through. Now, the reason for that isn't because this isn't accurate, because it is, and it's going through the same hole every time. Every material has elastic memory. So you can squeeze it through a hole, but it will plump back out a certain amount after it's been through that hole to the same degree. So this will forever and a day require a little bit of a push to get through that last bit through the same sizer. I got teasy and bored with explaining this to people who just wanted to send it back because they wanted their money back because it obviously wasn't working. So I kind of pulled back on the sizer thing, and my wife carried it on and she sold them on eBay. If you go onto our website now, you'll see it's kind of, they're marked out of stock. Ring us before you buy one. And the other reason we don't sell so many now is we sold an awful lot of these, and the vast majority of people, I'm sure lots of you have already got one, were very, very happy with them. And then a company who sell on eBay, as well as through their own website, contacted us and said, we'd like to buy those off you and sell them for you. I said, well, yeah, okay. We want to pay this much for them. I said, well, that's half of what it costs us to have them made. These are precision made. Well, we want to buy them for this much. I said, well, I can't do that. So anyway, they're getting them made now, and are selling them for less than it costs us to make these. But theirs are in brass, ours are in stainless. So they're selling them for less than it costs these. And that wouldn't be so bad if the sizes that were stamped on them had any relationship whatsoever with what size was actually inside of the bore. Because by this point, we'd already sold maybe 1,000, 1,500 of these things. We had a lot of customers in the UK with them. And because these other ones came out in looking the same, but for a fraction of the cost, they tried them, and they did contact me and said, no, these aren't very good. And they sent them to me, and we put them on the laser measurer that we were using to grade ours out. And they were almost 1/10 of a millimeter, 0.1 millimeter out in most cases. So because of that, they didn't really work. And because of that, if you go on and look about pellet sizes, you'll get people saying, oh, I used one, it was rubbish. So there you are. That's kind of what happened with pellet size. We still sell, I don't know, we still sell maybe 70 or 80 a month. but about 90% of those go to the United States. The United States, they're big into bench rest shooting. They absolutely love, and we've got a distributor over there. All he takes that we make is pellet sizers, and he goes through them like they're going out of fashion. If you're in the States and you want one of these, I think it's high pressure air or something like that. I can't remember. Oh, I should have looked that up before I started. Contact me. In fact, I'll put a link to his website down below, because you can buy these direct from him in the States, which will save you tariffs and imports and all kinds of stuff. And he buys them hundreds at a time, so he will have them in stock. But in the UK, they kind of died, which is a shame, because they do actually work, as the testimony of all of the people who've bought one and contact me say. It's amazing. My groups we're talking bench rest people here. We're talking the Jason Lockett's. We're talking the Matt Gleaves. We're talking that kind of precision, that kind of ability. It's shaving a millimeter off their group, and they're over the moon. They couldn't believe they'd be able to get that much advantage. It's great. Now, we do these, as I've said, in different sizes, from 4.48 to 453, 4.48 to 4.53, hundredth of a millimeter grades in between them. Some people, the real techie ones, will try them all and say, this one's the best one for my gun. But I believe personally, 80% of the benefit you get from a pellet sizer is simply making them all the same size. Now, I'm going to use, it's not a $4.99 from Lidl's vernier. But if I get some of these, even with a vernier, you will see that even though these are listed as a 4.53 pellet, that one's 5.53 pellet, that one's 5.63 mil. This one is 5.7 mil. So the difference in sizes in a tin, if you were to measure them, and if you had the £40,000 measuring equipment as well, the difference in size is even greater than the difference in weight. So by putting them all through a sizer, you are going to make them more uniform, especially if it's the group that you've already picked out to all be the same weight. If you then make them all the same size, they will inevitably shoot better. So you could do that before lubricating your pellets, and a lot of people say that it will make a difference. Now, as to what size you should use, now I'm going to try something here, because I've talked about the metal elastic memory. I've got a 5.49 and I've got a 5.52 here, so there is 300th of a millimeter between them. So logic says, and I haven't tested this, if this does go straight through, I'm going to pretend this is what I meant to show you all the time, all the way. I'm going to put this through a 5.49, okay? Boom. Now I'm going to put it through a 5.52. It hasn't dropped out the bottom. Needed no pressure at all to push it, but it stopped in there. Right. But that is still, if I put it through the 5.49 again, you will see that comes to there. It still needs pressure to come through. Go to there. It still needs pressure to come through. The sizer is working. That pellet is the same size every time it goes through there. Every pellet you put through there will come out the same size. If you weighed them before putting through there, they are now the same size and weight. Now we are back to this, like I said, this is awesome if you are that good. I'm not that good. So doing this may make a difference. It won't make an awful lot of difference to my reactive targets. It's not going to make a lot of difference to a tin can. I don't shoot much on paper. If I was trying to test the accuracy of something on paper, it's absolute accuracy, then I would do all of this, and then I would give the gun to my wife to do the group, because she is a better shot than me. But let me show you something about pellet sizers that even us mere mortals can take advantage of. Now we have here a pellet with a deformed skirt. If I put that into my pellet sizer and then push it down with my pellet sizer proddy tool, which has a rounded end, you'll see it has made that deformed pellet the right shape. So given that these are 1995, I think the stainless ones, given that they're 1995, and how many deformed pellets your chosen brand has in a tin, and the cost of a tin of pellets nowadays, it isn't a difficult sum to work out how many tins of pellets you have to use before you've actually made the money back from buying one of these. And also the reason we've swapped from brass to stainless steel, we did that several years ago now, because more and more people are using these lead-free pellets. Now, these lead-free pellets are very, you'll note if you've tried them, they're very, very hard. And if you put something hard through a metal that's soft, you're going to score that metal. So you need it to be harder than the metal you're pushing it through. Sorry, you need the metal you're pushing it through to be harder than the metal you're pushing through it, which is why we turned to stainless. And we actually went to the highest grade of stainless, because lots of our customers now, again, mainly in the United States, they're our largest customer base, they're using slugs. Now these things are nigh on solid, and they're using a hammer to tap these through, but the results they're getting from them at range speak for themselves. So they love them. And it's a one-off purchase that works for every pellet you fire after that. So from that point of view, it's great. So should you size your pellets? How much time you got on your hands? All this, I mean, all this, don't get me wrong, it's going to make a difference. If you clean all the crap out the tin off your pellets, give them a wash, it's going to make a difference. Put aside the dented ones and don't use them, or use a pellet sizer and fix them. That's going to make a difference. Weigh them, get the biggest batch that are all the same weight, use them as your premium pellets, the other ones as your practice pellets. That's going to make a difference. Then get every single one of those, put it through a sizer to make sure they're all the same size. It has to make a difference. But at what cost? I'm not talking financial, because it's nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, 20 quid, that's a tin of pellets nearly, isn't it? Not far off that. It's the time. It's the social humiliation. Are you coming out tonight? Oh, I can't. I've got to wash my pellets. Really? Also, another thing, and this is serious actually, before we go, on a serious note, if you are using a PCP, that is fine, that is great, and you are wonderful. But if you're using a PCP, you may find sizing your pellets increases your power. That is because a PCP develops a pulse of air, which is why a heavy pellet with a PCP gives you the best power, because it gives you pushback on it. But similarly, with a sized pellet, it's just gone. It's gone. With a Springer, you may find that sizing your pellet will reduce your power. Not by a lot, but you might find your power reduces. That's because instead of a pulse of air, a Springer builds up. As the piston moves down, it's building up pressure, and it gets to a certain pressure, then the pellet starts moving. Okay, the earlier the pellet starts moving, the further up this way the piston is, on its travel. So if it comes all the way down to here, it's got a huge amount of pressure and your pellet goes. If it's coming down but your pellet's slacker in the barrel, it's going to come down and it's already going to start it moving, and you're going to get less power. So if you are using a PCP, if you go for a 4.48, 4.49, something like that, you may find the power increases. If you're using a Springer and you use a 4849, you may find your power decreases. The best thing to do with a Springer is to get a 4.53, I've found 4.53, and get 4.53 and above pellets. Let me show you on the bottom of the deep blue sea. No, not the bottom of the deep blue sea. It's like Tourette's, really. I can't help myself. On the bottom of my tin here, let me get my glasses. It says here, H&N Field Target Trophy 5.53. On the bottom of your tin, you will invariably find their 5.50 sports. Invariably find the head size, okay? Now, that is an indication. That's an indication of the machine it was made on, not the final size of the product. Remember, elastic memory. Things are elastic. It will go through a thing. It'll be larger on the other side than it was when it went through it. So if you've got a Springer, get a 5.2 or a 5.3 and get 5.3 or above pellets. As long as they push through with pressure, it sized them, you're good to go. And that is it. Oh, another thing, I tell you, another thing that makes a difference for a Springer. A lot of people will say the breech will size the pellet, and to a degree, yes, you're absolutely right, it does. But it's also undeniable that the people who take the time to size their pellets, grade their pellets, wash their pellets, lube their pellets, get better results than us mere mortals. Could be all up there, could be down there. I think it's a bit of both. But in a Springer, now see this little doodad, I had 100 of them made a few years ago, and it took an age to sell them. I kept one myself because I love it. And what it is, it's a pellet seating tool. It's got a little domed bit there. So when you're using a brake barrel in particular, which is my favourite air rifle, is a brake barrel spring-powered air rifle. That to me is an air rifle, but you put your pellet in there, you use that, and it just pushes the pellet into the same depth every time. Remember, we're after repetition. We want the same shape, we want the same weight, we want the same size, and the final key is the same depth inside of the barrel. And that is, if you do all of those things and you miss the target, it means you're a crap shot. And that's it. That is it. Thank you for watching Pellet Week. I hope it's been useful. If you're in the States, please check out the link below. I'll link to where you can buy these. If you're in the UK and you want to try these, give me a ring, send me an email. We do have most of them in stock because we send so many to the States. I lost heart with supplying these in the UK because of shoddy goods, giving the whole thing a bad name. And the whole elasticity thing. If you can get your head around the fact that it's going to go through the same hole every time and still need a push, you'll be right. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit notifications. I'll see you all again next week. Thank you. Goodbye.